Hello, my name is Carlos Scuderi and I will be presenting my final project assignment for CIS 9467. In this case, I will introduce in the viewer how to use Excel software in order to improve IT security in today's economy. So before going into any details, it's important to address the importance of IT security today. The news are ripe with articles about companies, both governmental entities and private ones, that they are dealing with a lot of different security issues, from hospitals paying ransom to hackers to political parties being hacked and their information being shared at the worst possible time, as well as even IT companies that are being penetrated by hackers and then accounts and passwords are being stolen. So we will be playing the role of a fictitious company, Symantec, that is providing IT services to all these different customers, and how we can actually protect their systems to be more effectively running. Now, we'll be doing that by considering certain variables that we will be using to run software. Certainly, there is always the management expectation to minimize costs so profits can be maximized. So that's from the management perspective, but also from the employee's perspective, we have this line of thought about buying American and hiring American. So we'll be also seeing what type of impact that could lead to if we are moving production from onshore to offshore locations. And finally, we'll be discussing the potential impact of tariffs that could change the overall analysis about allocation of resources. So overall, we'll be trying to solve three key questions. We're trying to address three key objectives. So how the company can organize its resources in US and Mexico without software first. So how management will be working at the very beginning to assign resources, and then how the role of solver can be applied to the actual effective allocation of resources, and whether that will have a bearing or not to the US workforce. And then we'll be running a third analysis about how in today's economy tariffs may change the overall calculations and who will be the winners and losers. The overall information that we will be using in this presentation has come from real and made up data. Customer names and system information has been anonymized due to privacy concerns. Now, moving directly to the Excel spreadsheet. So this is the initial report that we will be using. It basically lists all the customers that have systems being managed by Symantec, and then the name of the system, the type of operating system that they have, and here we'll have basically the type of deviation that has been identified in the system. Now, not all the deviations are the same, so we are using a column severity to basically give different priorities to each one of the issues. For example, if we have a server that does not have any password in place, is far more threatening than, for example, if a server hasn't been backed up lately. Okay, so here we have created an overall power view. So for general management to understand the type of data that we are dealing with, over here we have organized the customers in descending order of issues identified together with a pie chart. Then we have done the similar review by operating system together with a column chart. And finally, the severities that we have been talking about. Now, we'll be not trying to solve all 200,000 type of issues identified, but we will be focusing on what's called critical issues and fatal issues. In order to do that, we have created a pivot table. Now, still, if we are concentrating on critical and fatal issues, we are still dealing with about 4,500 entries. So still, it's way too much work to be done within reasonable time. So we have again prioritized, we have used the pivot tables to take the top 10 entries. Now the top 10 entries will then become our demand. So basically the information collected in the pivot table has been loaded into the overall demand. Now for scenario number 1, what we have done is, what could it be a typical response from management, which will be allocation of resources, giving in this particular case priority to the American worker and assuming that we have free trade. Free trade in the aspect of tariffs, right? So in this scenario we have 0% tariffs. All the scenarios basically share the same information. So we have the constants here with somewhat accurate labor costs by hour, both from the United States and Mexico. Material cost in case that either software or hardware needs to be purchased, and then other costs including the tariffs. We will have site capacity in measured by headcount. So the total calculation here is the amount of hours available within a 6-month period. And then we'll have the calculations to estimate the total cost to do the repairs, right? So both from the United States, and one can see here what will be the cost for Mexico. Again, as I said before, in this scenario we have calculated without using Solver. So what management could have done in this case is might have started allocating the top amount of issues starting first in the US, and then when you end up having a bottleneck because you don't have more resource available is then when you fail over to Mexico to continue working. So here is a table that depicts basically the issue. We started allocating until we found a bottlenecks with the Windows engineers, and this is when we basically switched production to Mexico. Well, so this is the natural calculation. It has ended up with $12 million of total cost. Solver scenario 2 has been done by giving equal importance to both the Mexican and US production and still considering that we have free trade. So over here we have run Solver, which it has provided this results, and it has ended up being about $11.6 million. Here you can already see that the overall production has moved to Mexico at some point, because the total cost to perform this type of work is lower in Mexico than it could be in the United States. So Solver has identified this competitive advantage from Mexico and has moved production to Mexico and reducing production in the United States, but still within the constraints, meaning we want to meet the demand, but we do not want to exceed the amount of resource that we have. So here's the current run rate that we have after Solver has calculated the values, compare with the total available resources that they are over here. So scenario number 3 has considered this long-standing discussion about the implementation of tariffs by the US government. So basically in this scenario, Solver has taken these 2 production sites with equal importance, so it hasn't given priority to anybody. Nothing else has changed on the tables, with the exception that now we have a 25% tariffs applied to Mexico. So over here we can see that Solver has moved back some of the production back to the United States. So, and this can be quickly identified by the 100% here of use capacity for Windows engineers. Now you can see that the total cost has resulted in $12.6 million in comparison to approximately $11.6 million, and then with the first scenario of $12 million. So you can already confirm that Solver, without any changes in the 2 scenarios, only by just applying Solver, has reduced the total operating cost by $400,000. Now, when the tariffs are being implemented, the cost has bumped up about $1 million more. Finally, we have the comparison tables. So here we have all the resources being used, again, to address the vulnerabilities, and production and capacity utilization. So here you can see we started with using a lot of resources from the United States because that's what we are comparing. Then it went down after we used Solver because production has been shifted to Mexico, and then went up after the tariffs. Now, it's clear that the U.S. worker could, be benefited from the tariffs because more work is being done in the United States, but that will come at the expense of Symantec. So I leave it up to the viewer to say whether that has been the right decision. Again, yes, more work in the United States, but then at the expense of more operating costs, which in the end impacts the overall profitability of the company. Thank you so much.